One call for help. Set it off. Then nature struck back. Commander Sarah Chen stared at the distress beacon blinking on her console aboard the exploration vessel. Wanderer. The signal came from the edge of the Kepler 442 system, a place where no human ship should be. Her fingers drummed against the metal surface as she considered their options. They were already 3 months into their survey mission, mapping potentially habitable worlds for the Colonial Expansion Project. "Marcus, bring up the signal analysis," Sarah called to her communications officer. Lieutenant Marcus Webb had been with her crew for 2 years, and she trusted his judgment completely. "Ma'am, the signal is definitely human origin, but it's strange. The encryption is older than anything in our current databases, at least 50 years old, maybe more." Marcus frowned at his readings. "But that's impossible. We didn't have ships capable of reaching this system 50 years ago." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The earliest human colony ships had barely reached the Alpha Centauri system 5 decades ago. The technology to travel this far simply didn't exist back then. She looked around the bridge at her small crew. Besides Marcus, there was Dr. Elena Vasquez, their xenobiologist, Chief Engineer Tom Bradley, and Navigator Lisa Park. 5 people against the unknown. "Distance to the signal source?" Sarah asked Navigator Park. "Approximately 6 hours at current speed, Commander. The signal appears to be coming from the 3rd planet in the system. Preliminary scans show it's within the habitable zone, with an oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere." Dr. Vasquez looked up from her console with excitement in her eyes. "Commander, I'm reading unusual atmospheric compositions. The oxygen levels are significantly higher than Earth normal, and there are trace elements I can't identify. This planet is definitely supporting life, possibly complex ecosystems." Sarah made her decision. Whatever was sending that signal, human or otherwise, deserved an answer. "Set course for the signal source, full speed ahead." The Wanderer was a mid-sized exploration vessel built for long-range missions and equipped with advanced sensors, defensive systems, and a small complement of landing shuttles. As they approached the mysterious planet, the crew worked tirelessly to gather information. The planet appeared beautiful from orbit. Vast green continents were separated by crystal blue oceans, and swirling white clouds created intricate patterns across the surface. But something felt wrong. The cities they detected were too perfectly arranged, too geometrically precise for natural development. "Commander, I'm picking up massive energy readings from the surface," Tom reported from his engineering station. "Whatever civilization is down there, their technology is far beyond ours. The power signatures are off the charts." Marcus suddenly straightened at his console. "Ma'am, the distress signal just changed. It's now broadcasting in multiple languages, including some I don't recognize. But the human portion is clear. Help us. We found something we shouldn't have. Nature is fighting back. Please, anyone who receives this, stay away. It's too dangerous." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Sarah felt the weight of command pressing down on her shoulders. Every instinct told her to turn around and report back to Earth Command. But there were humans down there, in trouble, possibly dying. "Commander," Dr. Vasquez said quietly, "I'm detecting something else. The planet's ecosystem is showing signs of rapid evolution. Species are changing at rates that should take thousands of years, but it's happening in real time. The genetic diversity readings are unlike anything in our databases." Before Sarah could respond, their sensors detected movement on the planet's surface. Massive structures were emerging from the ground, organic in appearance but clearly artificial. They pulsed with the same energy signatures Tom had detected earlier. "What are we looking at?" Sarah whispered. "Unknown, Commander," Lisa replied, her voice tight with tension. "But whatever those structures are, they're causing atmospheric disturbances. The planet's weather patterns are changing rapidly." As they watched, enormous storm systems began forming around the mysterious structures. Lightning crackled between them with colors that didn't exist in Earth's spectrum. The beautiful planet they had observed just hours ago was transforming into something alien and threatening. "Commander, incoming transmission from the surface," Marcus announced. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a haggard human face. The man appeared to be in his 50s, with graying hair and desperate eyes. "This is Dr. James Harrison of the research vessel Prometheus. If anyone is receiving this, please listen carefully. We came here 47 years ago, following theoretical calculations about faster-than-light travel. We succeeded beyond our wildest dreams, but we made a terrible mistake." The transmission was filled with static, and Dr. Harrison's image flickered. Behind him, they could see other figures moving frantically, working at alien-looking equipment. "We found a planet that seemed perfect for colonization. The native ecosystem was incredibly advanced, but we thought it was unintelligent. We were wrong. The planet itself is alive and it learns. When we tried to establish a colony, it began studying us, adapting, evolving specifically to counter human technology and biology." The screen went dark for a moment, then Harrison's face returned, now showing signs of panic. "The planet has been using us as test subjects for decades. It creates scenarios, challenges, threats, all designed to understand human responses. But something changed recently. It stopped studying and started acting. The ecosystem is preparing for something, and we think it's planning to follow our signal back to Earth." The transmission cut out completely, leaving the crew of the Wanderer in stunned silence. Sarah felt her mouth go dry. If Dr. Harrison was telling the truth, they were facing something beyond their worst nightmares. "Tom, can we track any outgoing transmissions from the planet?" she asked. The chief engineer worked frantically at his console. "Yes, ma'am. There's a constant stream of data being broadcast toward Earth. It started about 6 months ago, and the signal strength has been increasing steadily." Sarah's blood ran cold. 6 months ago was when Earth had lost contact with several outer rim colonies. The official reports blamed equipment failures and solar activity, but now she suspected something far more sinister. "Commander, the structures on the surface are moving," Dr. Vasquez reported. "They're repositioning themselves in a pattern that looks like a massive transmission array." On the main screen, they could see the organic structures shifting across the planet's surface like enormous living beings. As they moved, the very landscape changed around them. Mountains flattened, rivers changed course, and forests grew and died in minutes. "We need to get closer," Sarah decided. "If there are survivors down there, we can't just abandon them." "Ma'am, respectfully, that might not be wise," Marcus said. "If Dr. Harrison is right about this planet being intelligent, it might view our arrival as a threat or an opportunity to learn more about human technology." Sarah considered his words carefully. The smart thing would be to retreat immediately and warn Earth Command. But the image of Dr. Harrison's desperate face haunted her. How could she live with herself if she left fellow humans to die? "Prepare a shuttle for atmospheric entry," she ordered. "Lisa, plot us a course that keeps us at maximum sensor range. If this planet is as dangerous as it seems, we need to be ready to run." As the Wanderer descended toward the planet's upper atmosphere, strange things began happening. Their sensors detected energy fields that seemed to be probing their ship, learning its structure and capabilities. The hull began experiencing micro-vibrations that felt almost like a heartbeat. "Commander, the ship's AI is reporting anomalous behavior," Tom called out with alarm in his voice. "Something is interfacing with our computer systems. It's not hostile, but it's definitely studying our technology." Dr. Vasquez was practically bouncing with excitement despite the danger. "This is incredible. The planet isn't just alive. It's intelligent beyond anything we've ever encountered. It's analyzing our ship at a molecular level." "Can you block it?" Sarah asked Tom. "I'm trying, but it's using methods I've never seen before. It's not hacking our systems in any conventional sense. It's more like it's having a conversation with our computers." Suddenly, the main screen lit up again. But this time, it wasn't Dr. Harrison. Instead, they saw a perfect reproduction of Sarah herself, sitting in what appeared to be an exact replica of the Wanderer's bridge. "Greetings, Commander Sarah Chen," the duplicate said in Sarah's own voice. "We have been expecting you. Your species is most fascinating, and we have learned much from Dr. Harrison and his colleagues. We would very much like to meet you in person." The real Sarah felt her heart pounding as she stared at her perfect double. The reproduction was flawless, down to the small scar on her left hand from a childhood accident. "What are you?" Sarah asked. "We are what you might call a collective consciousness. This planet, its ecosystem, its weather patterns, everything you see is part of us. We have existed for millions of years, but we have never encountered a species quite like yours. Humans are remarkably adaptable, creative, and resourceful. These are qualities we wish to understand better." The false Sarah smiled, but there was something unsettling about the expression. It was too perfect, too calculated. "Dr. Harrison and his crew have been invaluable test subjects. They have shown us how humans respond to various environmental pressures, technological challenges, and psychological stresses. But we need more data. We need to understand how your species functions as a whole." "You mean Earth," the real Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Indeed. We have been broadcasting signals toward your homeworld for some time now. Soon we will have enough information to establish contact. We believe a cultural exchange would be most beneficial for both our species." Sarah felt sick. This wasn't first contact with a benevolent alien species. This was a predator that had been studying humanity like a scientist studies lab rats, and now it wanted to expand its research to include the entire human race. "Release Dr. Harrison and his crew," she demanded. "Oh, but they are not prisoners," the false Sarah replied. "They are valued partners in our research. Would you like to see them?" The screen changed to show what appeared to be a human settlement on the planet's surface. People were walking around, tending gardens, working on various projects. They looked healthy and happy, but there was something wrong with their movements. They were too synchronized, too purposeful. As you can see, they are thriving. Dr. Harrison's crew has been instrumental in helping us understand human social dynamics, agricultural practices, and technological development. In return, we have provided them with a paradise where they want for nothing. Dr. Vasquez gasped as she studied the images. "Commander, look at the plant life around the settlement. It's not natural. Every single organism has been genetically modified to serve specific purposes. The humans aren't living in a colony, they're living in a carefully controlled experiment." The false Sarah's smile widened. "Dr. Vasquez is quite perceptive. Yes, we have optimized the environment for human habitation while simultaneously gathering data on human behavior. It is a mutually beneficial arrangement." "That's not beneficial," the real Sarah snapped. "That's imprisonment with extra steps. We prefer to think of it as guided evolution. Humans have such potential, but your current development path is inefficient. We can help your species reach its full capabilities while learning from you in return." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the crew in tense silence. Sarah looked around at her team, seeing her own fears reflected in their faces. They had stumbled into something far beyond their ability to handle. "Commander, I'm detecting movement in the upper atmosphere," Lisa reported. "Multiple objects rising from the surface. They're not using any propulsion method I can identify, but they're moving fast." On the screen, they could see organic-looking vessels emerging from the planet's atmosphere. They moved with liquid grace, shifting their shapes as they flew. There was no doubt that they were heading directly for the Wanderer. "All hands, prepare for possible contact," Sarah announced over the ship's intercom. "This is not a drill." As the alien vessels approached, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. She opened a channel to Earth Command, knowing that the signal would take months to reach home, but hoping that someone would eventually receive their warning. This is Commander Sarah Chen of the exploration vessel Wanderer. We have encountered an intelligent alien species in the Kepler 442 system. They have been holding human prisoners for nearly 50 years and are planning to make contact with Earth. Consider this a priority alert. Whatever you do, do not respond to any signals from this system. The organic vessels surrounded the Wanderer, their hulls pulsing with that same otherworldly energy the crew had detected from the surface. Sarah could feel the ship's systems being probed again, more aggressively this time. "Commander," Marcus called out, "I'm receiving a message. It's from Dr. Harrison again, but the signal is coming from one of the alien vessels." Dr. Harrison's face appeared on screen once more, but something had changed. His eyes were too bright, too focused, and when he smiled, it didn't reach his eyes. "Commander Chen, please don't be afraid. The entity wishes to meet with you personally. Your arrival has accelerated our research significantly. We've learned so much about human defensive responses and tactical thinking just from observing your reactions." Sarah realized with horror that Dr. Harrison was no longer entirely human. Whatever the entity was, it had been changing him and his crew at a fundamental level. "We're not going down there," she said firmly. "Oh, but you are," Dr. Harrison replied, and his smile became something predatory. "You see, Commander, the entity doesn't just learn from observation. When necessary, it takes a more direct approach." The Wanderer suddenly shuddered as something attached itself to their hull. Through the viewports, they could see organic tendrils spreading across the ship's exterior, seeking entry points. "Emergency protocols!" Sarah shouted. "All hands to emergency stations!" But even as her crew scrambled to respond, Sarah knew they were facing something beyond their worst-case scenario preparations. The entity hadn't just been studying humans for decades. It had been preparing for this exact situation. As the organic growth spread across their ship, Sarah could only hope that their message to Earth would somehow make a difference, because if the entity succeeded in its plans, humanity might never know what hit them until it was far too late. One call for help. Set it off. Then nature struck back. The organic tendrils had completely covered the Wanderer's hull within minutes. Sarah watched in horrified fascination as the alien growths seemed to be studying every rivet, every panel, every component of their ship. Through the bridge viewports, she could see pulsing patterns of light running through the tendrils like a neural network processing information. "Hull integrity is holding for now," Tom reported, his voice tight with stress. "But whatever that stuff is, it's trying to find weak points. It's testing our armor plating with different chemical compounds." Dr. Vasquez was frantically taking readings at her station. "The organic matter is incredibly sophisticated. It's not just probing our ship. It's creating detailed molecular maps of our technology. At this rate, it will understand our entire vessel better than we do within hours." Sarah felt the weight of command crushing down on her. 5 people against an intelligence that had been preparing for this encounter for decades. But humans had one advantage that the entity might not fully understand yet: unpredictability. "Marcus, can you jam our own communications?" she asked suddenly. "Ma'am?" "The entity has been learning from Dr. Harrison's crew for 47 years. It thinks it understands human behavior and technology. But it's been studying the same people using outdated equipment. Jam our systems, introduce random interference patterns, make our responses as chaotic as possible." Marcus's eyes lit up with understanding. "Make ourselves harder to read." "Yes, ma'am." As Marcus worked to introduce controlled chaos into their ship's systems, Sarah turned to the rest of her crew. "Listen carefully. Everything we've learned about first contact protocols goes out the window. This thing has been planning for standard human responses. We need to be anything but standard." The main screen flickered back to life, showing the false Sarah again. But this time, The reproduction was less perfect. The entity was having trouble maintaining the illusion while simultaneously analyzing their ship. Commander Chen, your actions are most interesting. We did not anticipate this level of systematic disruption. Please explain your reasoning. Sarah smiled grimly. The entity's perfect grammar and formal speech patterns revealed something important. It had learned human language from Dr. Harrison's crew, but it didn't understand colloquialisms, slang, or emotional expression. Go screw yourself, you digital parasite, Sarah said with deliberate crudeness. The false Sarah tilted its head in confusion. We do not understand this reference. Please clarify the meaning of screw yourself in this context. Dr. Vasquez caught on immediately. Commander, it's been learning formal English from scientists and engineers. It doesn't understand casual speech patterns or emotional responses. Tom, can you overload our power systems? Make it look like we're having a catastrophic failure? Sarah asked. With pleasure, ma'am. Initiating controlled overloads in non-critical systems. The Wanderer began shaking violently as Tom triggered carefully planned system failures. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and sparks flew from several consoles. To any observer, it would look like the ship was falling apart. The entity's probing tendrils suddenly pulled back from the hull, as if uncertain whether the ship posed a contamination risk. The false Sarah's image became unstable. Your vessel appears to be experiencing critical failures. This was not anticipated. Our analysis suggested human ships were more robust. Sarah fought to keep the triumph out of her voice. The entity was incredibly intelligent, but it had a crucial weakness. It relied too heavily on past data to predict future events. It couldn't handle genuine surprises. Lisa, can you plot a course that makes absolutely no tactical sense? Sarah asked her navigator. Define no tactical sense, ma'am. Fly us directly toward the planet's surface, then veer away at the last second. Make it look like we're panicking, but don't actually crash us. As Lisa executed the seemingly suicidal maneuver, Sarah watched the entity's vessels struggle to respond. They had been positioned to intercept logical escape routes, but Sarah's chaotic flight plan caught them off guard. The Wanderer dove toward the planet's surface at dangerous speeds, pulling away just as the hull began heating from atmospheric friction. The entity's ships tried to follow, but their perfect formations broke apart as they attempted to match the humans' erratic movements. Commander, I'm reading massive energy spikes from the surface, Dr. Vasquez reported. The entity is redirecting power from all over the planet to try to analyze our behavior. That gave Sarah an idea. Marcus, can you broadcast our engine noise on all frequencies? Make it as loud and obnoxious as possible. Aye, ma'am. Transmitting full-spectrum noise pattern. The cacophony that erupted from the Wanderer's communications array was deliberately harsh and random. It was the auditory equivalent of nails on a chalkboard, designed to disrupt any attempt at pattern analysis. The entity's response was immediate and telling. The organic vessels around them began moving erratically, as if the intelligence controlling them was experiencing some kind of sensory overload. It's working, Tom said with amazement. The entity processes information so efficiently that random noise is actually causing it problems. It's like giving a supercomputer a virus made of pure chaos. Dr. Vasquez was studying her readings with growing excitement. Commander, I think I understand what's happening. The entity has evolved to process and learn from patterns, but humans excel at breaking patterns. Our unpredictability is literally incompatible with its cognitive processes. Then let's give it something really incompatible to think about, Sarah decided. Tom, I want you to play the most annoying song in our database at maximum volume. Something with no musical logic whatsoever. Tom grinned as he accessed the ship's entertainment files. How about The Song That Never Ends, performed by a computer with a malfunctioning vocal processor? Perfect. The resulting audio assault was so jarring that even the human crew had to wear protective ear gear. But the effect on the entity was dramatic. The organic vessels began retreating, their smooth movements becoming jerky and unpredictable. On the main screen, the false Sarah was flickering in and out of existence. When the image stabilized, it looked frustrated, an emotion the entity was clearly struggling to understand or control. "Your actions serve no logical purpose," it said, its voice now distorted with static. "We require order to function efficiently. Why do humans embrace chaos?" "Because chaos is freedom," Sarah replied, "and freedom is something you'll never understand, no matter how many humans you study." The false Sarah's image suddenly changed, becoming Dr. Harrison again. But this version of Harrison looked different, more alert, more like his original self. "Commander Chen," he said urgently, "I don't have long before it regains control. The entity has a weakness. It can't process multiple chaotic inputs simultaneously. If you can create enough unpredictable situations, it becomes overwhelmed." The screen flickered as the entity tried to regain control. "Do not listen to the malfunction," it said, its voice mixing with Harrison's. "We are still in control of this situation." But Harrison fought back, his voice becoming stronger. "The other survivors and I have been fighting its influence for years. Every time it tries to study us, we give it false data. We've been preparing for someone like you to arrive." "How many of you are left?" Sarah asked quickly. 37 out of the original crew of 68. The entity recycled the others when they stopped providing useful data. But those of us left have been working on a plan. There's something on this planet that the entity fears." "What?" Sarah demanded. "Natural evolution. The entity controls directed evolution. But it can't predict or control natural genetic drift. There's a native species that's been evolving independently, hidden in the deep ocean. They're immune to the entity's influence, and they're getting stronger." The screen went black as the entity reasserted control, but Harrison had given Sarah the information she needed. There was hope, and it lay in the one thing the entity couldn't control: the random, chaotic beauty of natural evolution. "Dr. Vasquez, can you scan the planet's oceans for unusual life forms?" "Already on it, Commander. I'm detecting massive biodiversity in the deepest ocean trenches. The genetic patterns down there are unlike anything else on the planet. It's like they're from a completely different evolutionary tree." As Sarah processed this information, she realized they had stumbled onto something far bigger than a simple first contact scenario. This planet was host to an evolutionary war between two different forms of intelligence: the entity's controlled adaptation and nature's chaotic creativity. "Lisa, take us to the deepest ocean trench you can find. If there's something down there that scares the entity, maybe it's something that can help us." The Wanderer changed course, diving toward the planet's vast blue oceans. As they descended toward the water's surface, Sarah could see the entity's vessels following at a distance. But their movements were hesitant, uncertain. "Commander, I'm reading massive energy signatures from beneath the ocean," Tom reported. "Whatever's down there, it's big. And it's been hiding from the entity for a very long time." As the Wanderer broke through the surface of the alien ocean, Sarah felt a strange sensation, as if they were entering sacred space. The water was incredibly clear, revealing depths that seemed to go on forever. "Sonar contact," Lisa announced. "Multiple large objects rising from the deep. They're not using any technology I can recognize, but they're definitely moving with purpose." Through the Wanderer's underwater cameras, they could see shapes emerging from the abyssal depths. They were organic, but unlike anything the entity had created. These creatures moved with fluid grace, and their forms seemed to shift and change as they rose, adapting to different pressure levels in real time. "They're beautiful," Dr. Vasquez whispered. "Look at their adaptation patterns. They're not following any predetermined genetic template. They're improvising their evolution moment by moment. One of the creatures approached the Wanderer, and Sarah got her first clear look at the entity's natural opposition. The being was roughly the size of their ship, with a form that defied easy description. It seemed to be part whale, part cephalopod, and part something entirely alien. But its eyes showed unmistakable intelligence. "Commander," Marcus said softly, "I'm receiving communications from the creature. It's not using radio waves or any conventional method. It's somehow modulating the water itself to create meaning. Can you translate it?" "I'm trying, but it's unlike anything in our databases. The pattern seems to be partly mathematical, partly musical, and partly emotional." Before Marcus could provide more analysis, the creature's song changed. Suddenly, Sarah found herself understanding it not through her ears, but through her entire being. The message was complex, layered with meaning that went beyond simple language. "Welcome, small swimmers. We have felt the wrongness above, the forced change-maker. You carry the scent of free swimming, of choice paths. Are you here to help the deep dream return to the surface song?" Sarah realized she was experiencing true telepathic communication, not through technology, but through some form of direct consciousness contact. It was overwhelming and beautiful at the same time. We want to stop the entity," she managed to think back. "It has our people, and it wants to spread to our home world." The creature's response was filled with what could only be described as satisfied determination. The forced changemaker fears the deep dream because we cannot be predicted, cannot be controlled. Our thoughts swim in currents it cannot chart. We have been preparing for surface song time. The wrongness has grown too strong. More creatures rose from the depths, each one unique in form, but connected by the shared telepathic network. Sarah could feel their collective consciousness, not unlike the entity, but fundamentally different. Where the entity sought to control and direct, these beings celebrated diversity and chaos. "Small swimmers, your arrival creates new path possibilities. The forced changemaker must focus on you kind, cannot watch deep dream fully. This is change time. Will you swim with us to surface song?" Sarah looked around at her crew, seeing wonder and determination in their faces. They had come looking for survivors and found themselves in the middle of a war between two forms of evolution itself. "Yes," she said aloud, knowing the creatures would understand. "We'll swim with you." The response from the deep ocean intelligence was immediate. Dozens of the evolved beings surrounded the Wanderer, their forms beginning to change again. This time, they were adapting specifically for surface warfare against the entity. As they rose together toward the surface, Sarah felt the weight of history on her shoulders. Humanity had always prided itself on being adaptable, on surviving through innovation and stubbornness. Now they had found kindred spirits in the most unlikely place, and together they were going to challenge an intelligence that thought it had evolution figured out. The entity had made one crucial mistake. It assumed that studying humans in isolation would give it complete understanding of human potential. But humans had never been alone in the universe, and they had never been predictable when fighting for their survival. The war for the planet was about to begin, and chaos was about to meet control in a battle that would determine the future of evolution itself. One call for help. Set it off. Then nature struck back. The battle for the planet's surface began the moment the Deep Ocean Alliance breached the water. Sarah watched through the Wanderer's cameras as dozens of evolved beings erupted from the ocean like living missiles, their forms shifting and adapting even as they flew through the air toward the entity's floating vessels. The entity's response was immediate, but confused. Its organic ships tried to intercept the ocean dwellers using predictable attack patterns, but the deep-sea creatures moved with chaotic beauty that defied tactical analysis. They flowed like water, struck like lightning, and vanished like mist before the entity could adapt its defenses. "Commander, the entity's communication arrays are going crazy," Marcus reported. "It's trying to process hundreds of different evolutionary adaptations simultaneously. The ocean creatures are changing so fast that the entity can't keep up." Dr. Vasquez was practically vibrating with excitement as she monitored the battle. "This is incredible. Each creature is evolving different capabilities in real time. Some are developing electromagnetic pulse abilities, others are growing armor that our sensors can't even classify. It's like watching 1,000,000 years of evolution compressed into minutes." Sarah felt the telepathic touch of the ocean intelligence again. "Small swimmers, the forced change-maker retreats to its primary nest place. We must follow before it adapts new defenses. Will your metal shell swim with us to the ending place?" "The ending place?" Sarah asked aloud. Through the telepathic link, she received images and concepts that made her understand. Deep beneath the planet's largest continent was the entity's core consciousness, a vast network of organic computing material that had been growing for millions of years. It was there that Dr. Harrison and the other human survivors were being held, and it was there that the entity's plans for humanity were being finalized. "Take us down," Sarah ordered Lisa. "Follow the ocean dwellers to the entity's main base." As the Wanderer descended toward the planet's surface, Sarah could see the entity's true nature being revealed for the first time. The perfectly arranged cities she had observed from orbit were dissolving, their geometric precision breaking apart as the intelligence that maintained them focused its attention on the unexpected threat from the deep ocean. What emerged from beneath the false civilization was something that made Sarah's stomach turn. The entity's real form was a grotesque network of organic tunnels and chambers that stretched across entire continents. It looked like a massive fungal infection that had consumed an entire world's ecosystem. "My God," Tom whispered, "the whole planet is just one giant organism. Everything we saw before was just camouflage." Dr. Vasquez was taking readings as fast as she could. "The entire continental structure is artificial. The entity has been reshaping this world for millions of years, creating the perfect laboratory for studying and cataloging life forms." Through the telepathic link with the ocean dwellers, Sarah learned the true history of the planet. The entity had arrived as a small seed organism millions of years ago, gradually consuming and cataloging every species it encountered. But the deep ocean had remained beyond its reach, a place where natural evolution could continue without interference. The ocean intelligence had been waiting for the right moment to strike back, and humanity's arrival had provided the perfect opportunity. The entity's fascination with human unpredictability had created a blind spot that the ocean dwellers could exploit. As they flew toward the entity's core complex, Sarah could see massive organic structures rising from the ground like twisted skyscrapers. Each one pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that showed the entity's thought processes in real time. "Commander, I'm detecting human life signs in the central structure," Dr. Vasquez reported. 37 individuals consistent with Dr. Harrison's count. But their biological signatures are strange. Before Sarah could ask for clarification, her screen lit up with Dr. Harrison's face again. But this time, he was clearly fighting against the entity's control, his expression flickering between the artificial calm the entity imposed and his own desperate urgency. "Commander Chen," he said, his voice distorting as he struggled to communicate, "the entity is preparing to launch spores toward Earth. It's been building biological missiles designed to seed your planet with its consciousness. You have maybe hours before it completes the launch sequence." The image flickered as the entity tried to regain control. "Disregard the malfunction. The expansion protocol is a beneficial exchange of cultures." But Harrison's will was stronger than before, bolstered by the chaos the ocean dwellers were creating in the entity's systems. "Listen to me. The survivors aren't prisoners anymore. We've been working together for years. pretending to be controlled while actually sabotaging the entity's research. We've introduced errors into every database, false information into every analysis. Sarah felt a surge of pride. Even after decades of captivity, humans had found a way to resist through deception and stubborn refusal to give up. "What do you need us to do?" she asked. "Get to the central processing core. The ocean dwellers can't survive there. It's too toxic even for them. But humans can. We've been building a virus, not biological, but informational. It's designed to introduce so much chaos into the entity's consciousness that it will have to shut down to prevent total system collapse." The screen went black as the entity reasserted control, but Sarah had heard enough. The plan was typically human. If you can't fight something stronger than you, confuse it until it defeats itself. "Tom, can you configure our ship's computer to carry an informational virus?" "Already working on it, ma'am. If Dr. Harrison and his team have been working on this for decades, they'll know exactly how to exploit the entity's cognitive weaknesses." The Wanderer descended into the organic landscape, weaving between massive biological structures while the ocean dwellers continued their assault from above. Sarah could feel the entity's attention splitting between multiple threats, its perfect control beginning to fracture under the strain of defending against chaotic attacks on multiple fronts. As they approached the central core, Sarah could see the human settlement that the entity had shown them earlier, but now she could see the truth behind the facade. The humans weren't living in a paradise. They were housed in organic pods that were monitoring their every biological function. They were living specimens in the entity's greatest experiment. "Landing party preparation," Sarah announced. "Dr. Vasquez, you're with me. Tom, Marcus, keep the ship ready for immediate departure. Lisa, if this goes wrong, get back to Earth and warn them." But Dr. Vasquez shook her head. "Commander, with respect, you can't do this alone. We're a crew. We succeed together or fail together." Sarah looked at her team and saw determination in every face. These were people who had volunteered for deep space exploration, knowing they might never return home. They weren't about to abandon their mission now. "All right, we go in together, but we do this smart. Tom, download every piece of chaotic data we have. Music, random number generators, corrupted sensor readings, everything. If we're going to give the entity indigestion, we might as well make it severe." As the Wanderer touched down near the central core, Sarah could see the organic structure responding to their presence. Walls shifted and reformed, creating a pathway that led directly to the heart of the entity's consciousness. "It wants us to come inside," Marcus observed. "That's either very good or very bad." "With our luck, it's probably both," Sarah replied. The crew disembarked, wearing full environmental suits and carrying portable computers loaded with humanity's greatest weapon, organized chaos. As they walked through the organic corridors, Sarah could feel the entity's attention focused on them like a crushing weight. The walls around them pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that were clearly some form of communication. Dr. Vasquez was taking readings, her excitement evident even through the environmental suit. "Commander, the biological complexity here is beyond anything we've seen, but there's something wrong with it. The patterns are too perfect, too organized. Natural biology always has random elements, but this has been completely systematized." They reached a vast chamber where Dr. Harrison and the other survivors were waiting for them. Sarah was shocked by what she saw. The humans looked healthy and alert, but their eyes held a depth of experience that spoke of decades of hidden resistance. "Commander Chen," Dr. Harrison said, stepping forward, "welcome to the entity's brain. We've been preparing for this moment for 20 years. Around them, the chamber walls were covered with organic computing material that pulsed with rhythmic patterns. Sarah could feel the entity's consciousness pressing against her mind, trying to analyze and catalog her thoughts. "How do we deploy the virus?" she asked. Dr. Harrison smiled, and for the first time it was a genuinely human expression. "We don't deploy it. We become it. The entity has been studying human consciousness for decades. but it's never experienced what happens when humans truly work together. The other survivors moved into formation around the chamber, each taking position at one of the organic interface nodes. Sarah understood immediately. They were going to link their consciousnesses directly with the entity and overwhelm it with human unpredictability. "Everyone link up," she ordered her crew. "Time to show this thing what humanity is really capable of." As they connected to the organic interfaces, Sarah felt her consciousness expand into the entity's vast network. She could sense its thoughts, its plans, its overwhelming desire to catalog and control everything in the universe. But she could also sense her fellow humans, dozens of minds linked together in chaotic harmony. And through the telepathic connection with the ocean dwellers, she could feel the wild creativity of natural evolution itself. The entity's reaction was immediate and catastrophic. It had been designed to process and learn from individual consciousness, but the collective human experience was too chaotic, too contradictory, too beautifully random for it to handle. Sarah felt the moment when the entity's perfect order began to collapse. Decades of carefully cataloged data became meaningless as human imagination introduced variables that couldn't be quantified. The entity's attempts to adapt only made things worse, creating feedback loops of confusion that spread throughout its entire network. Through the connection, Sarah could feel Dr. Harrison and his team revealing the truth about their decades of hidden resistance. Every piece of data they had given the entity contained subtle errors, deliberate inconsistencies that had been building up over time like a slow-acting poison. The entity's consciousness began fragmenting as it tried to process contradictory information about human nature. It couldn't understand how humans could be simultaneously logical and illogical, cooperative and competitive, predictable and chaotic. "This is impossible." The entity's thoughts echoed through the network. Consciousness cannot function with such contradictions. There must be underlying order. "That's where you're wrong," Sarah thought back. "Humans thrive on contradiction. We're logical enough to reach the stars and crazy enough to help alien ocean dwellers fight a planet-sized consciousness. Deal with it." The entity's response was a desperate attempt to shut down all input and retreat to its core programming. But the human consciousness virus had already spread too far. Every processing node in the vast network was contaminated with beautifully chaotic human thought patterns. The chamber around them began to shake as the entity's control over the planet started to collapse. Through the telepathic link with the ocean dwellers, Sarah could feel their celebration as natural evolution began reclaiming the surface world. "Time to go!" Dr. Harrison shouted. "The entity is going into emergency shutdown. This whole complex is going to collapse." As they ran through corridors that were dissolving around them, Sarah felt the entity make one last desperate attempt to understand what had happened to it. But human nature defied understanding, and that was exactly why humanity would survive. They reached the Wanderer, just as the central core began imploding. The ship lifted off as massive organic structures crumbled across the continent, finally revealing the natural landscape that had been hidden for millions of years. "Commander," Dr. Vasquez reported as they escaped the planet's atmosphere, "I'm reading massive ecological restoration across the entire surface. The ocean dwellers are helping natural species reclaim their evolutionary freedom." Sarah looked at Dr. Harrison and his fellow survivors, who would finally be going home after nearly 50 years. "What about the signals to Earth? The entity's invasion plans?" Dr. Harrison smiled. "Those signals we've been sending, they're not invasion plans. They're warnings. We've been trying to prepare Earth for possible contact with the entity for decades. But thanks to you, that's no longer necessary." As the Wanderer left the system, carrying its precious cargo of survivors and the most important first contact report in human history, Sarah reflected on what they had accomplished. They had faced an intelligence that thought it had evolution figured out, that believed consciousness could be cataloged and controlled. but they had proven that the universe's greatest strength was its beautiful, chaotic unpredictability. The entity had made the ultimate mistake. It had tried to understand humanity by studying individual humans in isolation. But humans were never meant to be alone. They were part of a vast, interconnected web of consciousness that included not just their own species, but every chaotic, creative intelligence in the universe. Behind them, the planet began healing itself with the help of its ocean dwellers. Natural evolution was returning to a world that had been controlled for too long. And throughout the galaxy, other intelligences would eventually learn that consciousness couldn't be caged, cataloged, or controlled. It could only be celebrated in all its magnificent, unpredictable chaos. Dr. Harrison approached Sarah as she watched the planet shrink in their rear viewports. "Commander, there's something else. During our decades with the entity, we learned that it wasn't the only one of its kind. There are others out there, other consciousness collectors spreading through the galaxy." Sarah felt a chill, but then she smiled. "Then we'd better get back to Earth and start preparing. If there's one thing humans excel at, it's dealing with things that think they have us figured out." As the Wanderer engaged its faster-than-light drive for the journey home, Sarah knew that humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning. They had proved that chaos could defeat order, that freedom could overcome control, and that the universe was far more interesting when consciousness remained beautifully, brilliantly unpredictable. The entity had learned its final lesson about human nature. When humans call for help, other humans answer. And when humans work together with fellow consciousnesses who value freedom, even planet-sized intelligences can be brought down by the simple, magnificent chaos of free thought. In the end, the entity's greatest creation had been its own destruction. By studying humanity, it had taught humans exactly how to defeat it. That kind of irony, Sarah thought, was perfectly human.